So what I'm going to do is we are going to be starting lighting from scratch. If you open the blank project, you'll see the blank project comes with a light source, a sky sphere, and a skylight. What we're going to do is we're going to take them all and we're going to delete them. It's going to ask you, are you sure? You say yes to all. And now your scene is nice and dark. You should not be able to see anything. The reason why I'm seeing something is because I've already baked my lighting. But you should not be able to see anything. Actually, you should be seeing this. And if that freaks you out a little bit, you can just go and check to change to the unlit mode, which is the mode that we'll be working in until we have all our lighting set up. Okay. So what I'm going to do is the first thing is we're going to bring in a directional light. So I'm going to go to lights and you're going to see different types of light right here. I'm going to bring a directional one. So I'm going to place it here. And I'm going to go back to the lit mode. Alright, so now that I've placed it here, I'm seeing that I have some lighting coming through my window. There's still nothing on the outside because we don't have any environment on the outside. But we can manipulate this lighting. So even though the preview text is moving, this lighting only works on rotation. It doesn't work on position. So you can place it position wise wherever you can, and the rotation, it's what's actually going to affect the lighting. So I'm actually going to rotate it a little bit so the lighting goes let's say a little bit more towards here, and let's see if we can change it. I think this is nice. So that way we'll see the lighting coming through very nicely and it's not affecting anything else. The next thing that we are going to bring is a skylight. The reason for the skylight is because that is what's going to help us give that ambient light that we have. Alright. So the last thing that you want to bring is the sky sphere. However, I'm not going to do that right now. What I'm going to do is bring reflection captures, which you saw me delete before. And the reason for those is because we do have reflective surfaces. And those surfaces will not be accurate if we don't have reflection capture points. So what I'm going to do is go to visual effects and you're going to see sphere reflection capture. I'm going to throw one here. And I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to throw another one of those over here. Okay. And another thing that we're going to do is actually reduce the radius because right now it's gigantic. So we can do it like this. Reduce the influence radio. Let's type 900. A little bit less maybe. Let's see, 700. There you go. And we're going to do the same thing with this one. Alright. Okay, and now you're going to see that you have two messages here. One, it says, hey, rebuild the lighting, and the other one is reflection captures. So building reflection captures doesn't take any time, so I'm just going to do it. It's here under build. Do not press this button because this will start building the whole project. It will take a lot of time, and because we don't have any gameplay, there's a possibility of crashing, so be careful when you do this. So for now, we're just going to build reflection captures. And once that's done, I think we can start building the lights to see how everything looks. However, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these two and throw them into the folder right there. And I'm going to go to build lighting quality because I had it in medium previously. If you have not touched this setting, yours should be on preview. The reason why we leave it on preview is because that's going to make things much easier. Alright, now we are going to build the light. That's going to take a little bit and I'll be right back. Okay, here we are, and one thing is you're going to get these messages, which is the UV maps are overlapping. It's actually fine because because we have the drapes, and I'm actually going to, this is very dark, I'm going to go to unlit. Because we have the drapes are very close to one another in terms of the UV. So light mask usually likes UVs to be separated by a lot. So I'm not going to worry about that because that's not going to affect our lighting that much. So just ignore this message for now. And I'm going to back to the lit mode. And as you can see, this is incredibly dark. So we need to start to shape our lighting in order for us to get a better sense of what's going on here. So I'm actually going to go into directional light. And as you can see, everything is on stationary. So stationary means that it will be partially dynamic and partially baked. That's why I like to leave it here, because movable, the dynamic lighting from Unreal, it's not that nice, and it needs a whole other resources and performance, and depending on what kind of equipment you have, it might work, it might not. So I'm going to stick with the baked lighting for now. And a couple of things that we need to do in order for this not to be so dark is on the skylight, we need to increase its intensity. So I'm going to pull it all the way to 5. And on directional light, we are going to increase. I'm going to make sure this is stationary as well. Yes, it is. And on this one, we are going to increase the indirect light as well. So right now you're going to see it's only 1. Let's crank it all the way up to 6, and we need to build our lights again. Okay, that is a little bit brighter, still not as shiny as we would like it to be. Not shiny, but as bright as we would like to be. One other thing is we have lots of drapes that are actually covering our windows. We don't have like real open windows, so we'll have to crank up some of the settings in order to get that nice lighting from just the directional light. And the reason why I'm just using the directional light is because I want the lighting here to look more natural and organic, as opposed to just adding other types of light to fill everything out. So we're just going to crank up a couple of settings. So here in the directional light, I'm going to put this all the way to 35. And by the way, you always have a limit here, but you can cross that limit if you just type the number. So actually I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna build my lights again. Alright, so as you can see, 35, it actually lit up our environment very, very nice. And we have some nice shadows. However, remember, these are all baked, so that means that if we move something, or if you move an asset, you will have to rebake the lighting once more. And actually this might be a little bit too bright, so I'm going to switch it to 26, and we'll use other post-processing materials for that. One other thing that we can do right now is bring in the sky sphere. So if you go here into search classes and type sky sphere, you're gonna get the sphere right here, and you can drag it into your environment. And this is going to give you a sky. Okay, and now it says it has an option here that says color determined by the sunlight. However, we're not going to do that. I'm just going to uncheck this, and we get our nice blue sky. Because the other way that you could do it is just check this and use your directional light, which, because of the position of our directional light, it'll be kind of like a dawn-ish, just because of where our where everything is placed. So because I don't like that color in the exterior, I'm actually going to uncheck it and leave it blue. And let's see, we're going to bring our skylight down a little bit to 4, and we're going to rebake our lights. Alright, this is more or less the kind of lighting situation that I would like. Actually, we'll probably make it a little bit dimmer, but we'll do that later on. Right now, what I want to focus on is in changing the settings. One of the things that I need to show you is if you are not seeing your shadows crisp as this one, remember that is because of your light map setting. So as you can see, the light map resolution of mine is on 512. If the default value is usually 64. However, I recommend always go a little bit over 64, so 128, 256, that's fine. 512 is okay. And because I changed it, I'll probably have to rebuild the light once more. But yeah, just make sure that if your light's not looking right, just change that a little bit and you should be fine. So what I'm going to do is actually, since we have to rebuild the light pretty much after I did that change, we're going to go into something called world settings, which will allow us to tweak our light mask a little bit. If you don't have this tab right here, what you can do is just go to settings and click on world settings, and that should give you this tab over here. And this should be collapsed by default. So all you have to do is click on the drop down and you should get all these options. What we're going to do is we're going to play with this. So number skylight bounces, it's very important. So I'm going to crank this up to 5. By the way, this will increase build times, so just take that into account. If you are still in testing phase, changing these numbers will significantly increase your build times. So I'm going to put that in direct lighting number of bounces. I think 3 is okay. Indirect lighting quality, let's do 1.5. We are going to check ambient occlusion because we want ambient occlusion over there. We're going to check generate ambient occlusion. We're going to probably tweak that later with a post-processing effect, but for now I want it to bake. And let's see. I'm gonna go back to meshes, directional light, and I'm going to probably change the directional light to 20. And skylight, we're going to leave it at 2. Okay. Now we're going to rebuild the light and see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little bit dimmer. I'll probably have to tweak that later. But one of the things is now we have ambient occlusion. So as you can see in certain parts, we have this kind of like contact surfaces, shadows, which are pretty nice. And it's one of the things that we wanted. Okay, so this is pretty much with the lighting, so you will adjust the lighting to your liking, and once you're happy with that, you can switch the lighting quality to higher production once you have what you're done. I'm actually going to, I think this is a little bit too dim, I'm actually going to go back to 26 on the indirect lighting. And since I will have to bake again, I'm actually going to use atmosphere sunlight, and I'm going to play with other things here. So there is something called light shaft. So light shaft, if you're playing any video games from the later generation, once you look directly into the light source that is casting over an object, you'll see kind of like what they call either light shafts or God rays. The way we activate that is by clicking here. And this is what I mean. So as you can see, right now, if you look at the window directly, you're going to see those God rays coming through. However, that's an effect that only shows once you're looking at the windows. If you're not looking at the windows, you're not going to see anything, because that's just how light works in the engine. There are some ways to fake that. However, I don't like using that in this specific environment because it might make our environment look a little bit too stylized. So this is how you get your God rays. You just activate it here, light shaft bloom. So let me just look into a window. So see what happens, light shaft bloom if you don't have it. And light shaft occlusion, this is so it's a little bit more accurate, and you can play with these values and see what you get. Actually, we can tweak the tint of that light a little bit if we wanted to. I'm actually going to put it all the way over here so it's not completely white. And let's do the same thing for the light settings. So let's play with temperature instead of playing with colors. So in temperature, this is based in kelvins, and as you can see, 6500 is completely white. I actually want it to be a little bit yellowish because light from the sun is not completely white. So I'm going to type 5000, And this is, however, this is going to change the lighting a little bit. So we'll have to rebake our lighting, but this is how you make your God rays. And if you want to change how the God rays look, or if you want to make them more prominent, you can always change the bloom scale here. But as you can see, this looks like nuclear apocalypse happening outside. So because this is post-apocalyptic, I'm not going to put it all the way up. That maybe we can do 0.25, just increase a little bit, but so it's not so much. Changing any of these values will ask you to rebuild your lighting, so that's why I'm leaving it on preview until we go to the very end of the project. So I'm going to rebuild once more and we'll see how that looks. Okay, here we are in our classroom. I think this amount of lighting is nice for the kind of environment that we're trying to achieve. We have some nice God rays coming through every window. And one more detail that I like to add to environments like this is fog. So we're going to try 2 different style of fogs. We have atmospheric fog, which it's a little bit different than the exponential height fog. So we're going to try them both and see which one we like better for this kind of environment. Because all these tools are depending on what you are trying to create. Not everything works on everything. There's no one type of solution. So that's why I like to test many things until I get something that I really like. So I'm going to go with atmospheric fog for now, which is the one that you should get if you choose the default blank project. So one of the things that the fog will do is just, it will make your God rays a little bit more prominent. So if I were to increase the density, not the density, I'm sorry, the fog multiplier, you're gonna see that those God rays start really popping out, just like the God ray bloom. So you can play with this, and maybe if you go into the directional light, you turn off the light shaft bloom, or not, because that's going to make the God rays disappear. So this is that the atmospheric fog is mostly to get this effect where the God rays are a little bit more prominent. And if we increase the volume scattering, let's say all the way to 30, this will react a little bit more with the exponential height fog. So I'm going to delete this one and show you how the exponential height fog works. So I'm going to throw this in, and you have to check volumetric fog in order for those God rays to shine. So I'm going to check this, and you're going to see that the God rays are even more prominent in this specific setting. So just like this, if you're looking directly at it, then you're going to see them react. If you're not looking directly at it, then you're going to see them be a little bit of coming like completely through the window. And as you can see, the exponential fog God rays are affected by your volumetric scattering. So I put this all the way up to where it was 30. This is what it was before, and you can keep on increasing it. Let's do something too high, like 50, and you can see that that's really one of the things that the fog does help with is that it helps light up your environment, but it can give you artifacts like what you're seeing right here. So this is one of the reasons that I'm not very fond of this type of way of doing the God rays, because you can get those problems right there. Actually, if we reduce it to 25, and what I don't like is that you can see it looks as if the light is going directly through the windows and it's ignoring the drapes, but then when you look at the drapes, it's actually right there. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not very fond of using exponential fog just for that. So I'm actually going to leave it here and put in a little bit. So the volumetric scattering is going to be around 20, just because this gives a little bit of ambient light to my environment. I'm going to go back into my lights here, and I'm going to turn on those God rays with the light shaft bloom. So turn them on here, and you can turn on the bloom scale. Actually, put it all the way to 0.5 if you want them to be more prominent when you're taking your screenshots. I actually think this shot looks really nice. And that is it for the lighting part.